The British monarchy just pulled off one of the most calculated and complete institutional power moves in modern royal history. And the world is only now starting to fully understand the scale of what just happened. Because what King Charles III executed during his high-profile diplomatic visit to the United States in early 2026 was not a family drama playing out on a global stage. It was a constitutional statement, precise, deliberate, and permanent, that sent one unmistakable message to every power center watching. Harry and Meghan are finished as a factor in the future of the crown. The moment that crystallized everything happened before most people were even paying attention. The international press had been breathlessly speculating for months about the possibility of a Montecito summit, a potential bridge-building meeting between King Charles and his estranged younger son during the American visit. The geography alone seemed to make it inevitable. The king was going to be within a short flight of the Sussex compound in California. Surely there would be at least a private conversation, some acknowledgement that a father and son occupied the same country at the same time. Instead, what happened was surgical silence. Reports from high-level diplomatic sources indicate that the king explicitly and repeatedly declined multiple requests for an audience with Harry. This was not a scheduling conflict. This was not a logistical complication that the team could not work around. This was a deliberate, considered, and unambiguous refusal that was designed to be understood exactly as it was a red line drawn in front of every power broker, every political figure, every media institution watching the visit. Harry is no longer a representative of the British state. He is a private individual. And private individuals do not get audiences with reigning monarchs on diplomatic visits simply because they happen to be in the same country. To understand why that refusal carries the weight it does, you have to understand the specific political context in which it landed. Washington's political elite, the people who observe and interpret the signals that allied governments send through the texture of their diplomatic conduct, understood immediately what the king's itinerary communicated. It was not just that Harry was excluded from the schedule. It was that the exclusion was visible, documented, and apparently offered without apology or diplomatic softening. No vague reference to the busy nature of the visit. No spokesperson carefully noting that the king hopes to connect with all family members at a future time. Simply no, an audience was requested. The request was declined. The visit proceeded without him. That is the kind of clarity that resets a geopolitical understanding of a person's status in an instant. And it means that anyone in Washington, in Brussels, in any international capital who had been maintaining a relationship with Harry and Meghan on the assumption that the Sussex connection to the British crown still carried meaningful institutional weight, has now received an unambiguous signal that the assumption was wrong. The connection is severed. The institutional weight is gone. The bank of the monarchy, financial and reputational, is closed to the Sussex operation permanently. And while that red line was being drawn in the international diplomatic space, something equally significant was happening in the domestic British political landscape, because the palace had not simply decided to close a door without simultaneously opening another one. The strategic genius of what has been executed in the months surrounding the king's American visit is that it was never just about removing Harry. It was about replacing him with someone who represents everything the Sussex experiment failed to deliver. Enter James Alexander, the Earl of Wessex, son of Prince Edward and Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh. At just 18 years old, James has been moved from the background of the working royal apparatus to its visible forefront with a speed and deliberateness that makes the strategic intent unmistakable. He appeared prominently at the 2026 state opening of Parliament. He has been given a growing role within the Duchy of Cornwall's operational structure. He has been positioned at state occasions in ways that maximize his public visibility, while showcasing the exact qualities that the Sussex brand was supposed to deliver, but spectacularly failed to: consistency, discretion, and a genuine, unforced commitment to the performance of duty that does not require a Netflix documentary to explain or justify. People close to the Prince of Wales are describing William's view of James in terms that carry enormous institutional significance. James is being seen as a vital, stabilizing asset, the spare that actually works, the supporting pillar that the slimmed-down monarchy genuinely needed, the drama-free alternative that makes the contrast with Harry's trajectory impossible to ignore and impossible to misread. At 18, James Alexander is already functioning as proof that the role Harry abandoned could be filled by someone who actually wanted it, and the palace is making absolutely certain the public understands that proof is available, operational. Now, let's talk about what specifically accelerated the timeline of this institutional reckoning, because there was a moment in late 2025 that functioned as a catalyst, crystallizing what had been building for years into something the palace could no longer treat as manageable background noise. The event that people inside the palace's communication structure are describing as the final confirmation of what the Sussex are, the moment that converted quiet frustration into cold, committed strategic action was the Kardashian debacle. The timing was the entire problem. Harry and Meghan attended Kris Jenner's lavish 70th birthday celebration, a high-glamour, celebrity-heavy event in Calabasas, at the precise moment that Remembrance Sunday was being observed across the United Kingdom. And for anyone who does not fully appreciate what Remembrance Sunday means in British national and military culture, the gravity needs to be understood. This is not a generic holiday or a cultural observance that carries different weight in different communities. This is the sacred, untouchable, absolutely non-negotiable day on which Britain honors its fallen military personnel, when the King lays a wreath at the cenotaph in London, when the nation observes 2 minutes of silence, when the entire country participates in a collective act of solemn gratitude and grief for the people who died in service of the Crown. The sight of King Charles and the Prince of Wales standing at the cenotaph, representing the weight of the institution and the nation's commitment to honoring its military dead, while Harry and Meghan were photographed at a celebrity birthday party in California, was the kind of visual contradiction that people in Britain do not forgive quickly or easily. And the response from the Sussex camp to this contradiction was not honest acknowledgement that the timing was unfortunate. It was a panicked, frantic damage control operation, a rush to get Kris Jenner and Kim Kardashian to scrub images of Harry and Meghan from their social media, justified to friendly media outlets with the explanation that the couple wanted to show respect for the king and the fallen soldiers by not appearing in celebratory contexts during a period of mourning. The palace's reaction to this explanation, gathered from multiple departmental sources, was described as quietly incandescent, not publicly explosive, not dramatically confrontational, but the kind of contained fury that belongs to people who have been watching a specific pattern of behavior for years and have just witnessed its most brazen expression. The hypocrisy was so specifically structured that it was impossible to miss. A couple who had spent years systematically attacking the institution through docuseries, through memoir, through interview after interview designed to damage the monarchy's reputation and leverage, was now using the monarchy's most sacred tradition as a shield against a PR nightmare of their own creation. If the solemnity of Remembrance Sunday genuinely mattered to them, the choice would have been simple and obvious. Decline the birthday party invitation. You do not attend a glamorous celebrity event on the most somber day in the British national calendar and then demand that the photographs be suppressed in the name of royal respect. That sequence of choices does not describe people with genuine reverence for the institution they are invoking. It describes people who use the crown's traditions as a utility, pulling them out when they serve a purpose and setting them aside when they are inconvenient. That realization, which insiders describe as having been confirmed rather than created by the Kardashian debacle, became the foundation of what the palace is now operating under as its definitive strategic framework for the Sussex relationship. Not engagement, not negotiation, not the management of a difficult family situation. Replacement. Clean, clinical, permanent replacement. The commercial collapse that has accompanied the institutional severance deserves its own careful examination because the two stories are deeply connected, and the connection reveals something important about how completely the colloquy was tense. Sussex strategy has failed on every dimension simultaneously. The original theory behind the Sussex departure from royal duties was built on a specific and apparently confident assumption that the combination of their global name recognition, their progressive brand identity, and their access to the world's most powerful media and entertainment infrastructure would enable them to build a commercial empire that would sustain their lifestyle and their ambitions independently of the monarchy's financial support. The Netflix deal was supposed to be the flagship of that empire. The Spotify arrangement was supposed to add another pillar. The WME representation was supposed to provide the strategic direction and the industry access to make the whole architecture function. And in the early days, the numbers attached to these arrangements were genuinely extraordinary, suggesting that the entertainment industry's appetite for the Sussex brand was as enormous as Harry and Meghan's own confidence in its value. But something fundamental failed to materialize: the content. Because the brand's value was built almost entirely on the drama of the royal exit, on the novelty of watching a prince and his American wife describe their anguish at the hands of an institution they had chosen to leave. That drama had a natural shelf life, and once it was exhausted, once the grievances had been aired, the accusations had been made, the institution had been attacked from every available angle. There was nothing underneath it to sustain the audience's interest. No body of original creative work. No established voice as writers, directors, or producers. No demonstrated ability to generate compelling content that did not depend on the novelty of their royal status for its basic appeal. The result was projects that industry insiders are describing with words like stalled and shelved and development hell content that consumed significant resources in development without producing the commercial return that justified the initial investment, and the creative explanation offered by the Sussex PR operation for why the content was not performing, that Meghan was laboriously self-editing to avoid offending the king, that royal standards were constraining her creative output, landed in Hollywood with the specific kind of silence that greets an explanation nobody believes, but everyone is too polite to challenge directly in public. Veteran entertainment industry observers were not polite about it in private. The irony they pointed to was structurally devastating. A woman who had spent years documenting private family conversations on global streaming platforms, who had sat across from Oprah and made specific allegations about members of the royal family, who had allowed her husband to write a memoir describing intimate details of his relationship with his father and his brother, was now claiming that her creative work was being constrained by her deep commitment to royal standards of decorum. The claim required the audience to completely forget everything that had preceded it, and the American entertainment industry's memory is not that short. The breaking point with WME with Ari Emanuel. One of the most powerful and most unsentimental figures in the global entertainment business is being described by sources within the agency as having arrived during the Thanksgiving holiday of 2025. The specific nature of what is alleged to have occurred during that period paints a picture of a client-agency relationship that had been deteriorating for some time, but that reached a specific threshold during a moment when the expectations being placed on agency staff were genuinely unreasonable. Meghan apparently became angry when WME personnel were not available to provide round-the-clock crisis management support during Thanksgiving, a sacred American family holiday that even the most demanding clients in Hollywood's most demanding agency generally acknowledge as a period when professional expectations need to be calibrated accordingly. The specific nature of a client who demands crisis PR support on Thanksgiving is not merely a story about difficult professional expectations. It is a story about someone who does not recognize that the people working for them have their own lives, their own families, their own sacred time, someone whose self-concept is sufficiently consuming that the concept of someone else's holiday cannot compete with their own immediate needs. For Ari Emanuel, a man who has navigated the most difficult personalities in global entertainment with legendary effectiveness, the calculation apparently became simple. The Sussex brand, at its current trajectory of diminishing returns and escalating operational friction, was no longer worth what it cost to maintain the relationship. Without the bargaining power of WME's representation, the Sussex operation has been navigating Hollywood's brutal commercial landscape without the protection that a major agency provides, and the consequences have been exactly as severe as anyone familiar with how that landscape operates would predict. Harry's personal commercial trajectory has followed its own specific and revealing arc, dropping from the association with six-figure speaking fees that his early post-royal career commanded to a recent corporate event in Australia, where his reported fee had fallen to approximately $50,000. For most people, $50,000 for a single appearance would represent an extraordinary professional achievement. But for someone maintaining a $14 million estate in Montecito, a multi-million-dollar annual private security detail that King Charles has definitively declined to fund, and the general infrastructure of a lifestyle built on the assumption of ongoing high-level commercial demand, $50,000 per appearance is not a sustainable business model, and the events themselves have reportedly begun to reflect the commercial diminishment they represent. Corporate symposiums and business retreats that are a considerable distance from the presidential galas and international forums that Harry's brand positioning once commanded. The half-empty retreat and the Australian corporate symposium are not the venues of a man whose global prestige is intact. They are the venues of a man who is discovering, in real time, that prestige, borrowed from an institution you publicly attacked, has a finite lifespan once the institution stops lending it. The decision to begin featuring Archie and Lilibet more visibly in Sussex digital content after years of fighting publicly and legally for the children's absolute privacy protection represents one of the most striking and most revealing reversals in this entire story. Because Harry did not just quietly prefer privacy for his children as a personal parenting choice, he campaigned for it actively, publicly, and with the kind of moral certainty that suggested deep conviction rather than strategic preference. He aligned himself with advocacy organizations working to protect children's digital privacy. He pursued legal action against media organizations that published images of his children without consent. He invoked the deaths of vulnerable people as justification for his position, framing children's image rights as a matter of fundamental human safety. And now, video content featuring his children is appearing on Sussex digital platforms in a context that people are analyzing with the specific critical attention that the couple's history of image management has made inevitable. The Easter video, the skiing footage, the carefully constructed family content designed to project the image of a grounded, relatable, authentically happy family navigating their extraordinary life with warmth and normalcy. But the reception has not been what the content was designed to produce because digital forensics, commentators, and royal observers have identified specific anomalies in the footage that have generated their own wave of skeptical analysis. Changes in hair length and color between frames that do not track consistently with continuous real-time footage. Apparent inconsistencies in the relative physical sizes of the children that observers are finding difficult to reconcile with normal developmental variation. The general aesthetic quality of footage that people are describing as assembled rather than captured, a quilting together of material from different periods that produces a polished surface while generating specific questions about what lies underneath. Whether those specific technical observations are accurate or overstated is something that would require professional video analysis to definitively evaluate. But the fact that the content is generating those observations at all, that footage produced by people whose stated commitment to their children's privacy was once positioned as a core value, is now being scrutinized for signs of manipulation, is itself a devastating commentary on how completely the authenticity foundation of the Sussex brand has been eroded. The response of the palace's inner circle, Princess Anne, Prince Edward, and Sophie, the unified working royal coalition that has coalesced around William's leadership vision to all of this, has been characterized by a restraint that is itself a form of devastating commentary. There are no public statements addressing the Sussex commercial collapse, No royal spokesperson commenting on the WME departure or the speaking fee decline or the children's content questions. The palace's response to every new development in the Sussex narrative is the same response: they simply continue doing the work of the monarchy with visible commitment and apparent genuine satisfaction, letting the contrast speak for itself without assistance. James Alexander appearing at state occasions with quiet, assured dignity. The working royals continuing to fulfill engagements across the United Kingdom and internationally with the kind of consistent, unglamorous dedication that builds genuine public trust over time. The visual and institutional narrative being constructed is one in which the monarchy not only does not need the Sussex brand, it is actively better off without it. More focused, more coherent, more authentically committed to the service model that gives the institution its moral authority. The contrast between James Alexander's apparently effortless, drama-free embodiment of royal duty and the Sussex brand's constant generation of controversy, contradiction, and commercial disappointment is doing more work for the palace's position than any public statement could achieve. You do not need to explain to people why a calm, competent, scandal-free 18-year-old performing his duties with poise is a preferable face for an institution than an estranged couple spending their time managing the fallout from Kardashian birthday photos. Development hell Netflix projects. The contrast explains itself. The Oprah Winfrey silence has its own specific meaning in this landscape because Oprah is not someone who becomes invisible through carelessness or inattention. When Oprah Winfrey removes herself from association with a situation, it is a calculated decision made by someone who understands exactly what her association communicates and what her distance communicates. And the distance she has placed between herself and the Sussex couple since the Archbishop of Canterbury definitively debunked the claim about the secret marriage 3 days before the official royal wedding that was made in her interview is the distance of someone protecting something precious. Oprah's brand is built, more fundamentally than almost anything else in American media history, on the idea that she is a purveyor of truth, that the emotional revelations made on her platform are genuine, that the stories told in her presence are authentic, that audiences can trust what they experience in the space she creates. Being the platform through which verifiably inaccurate information was delivered to a global audience of hundreds of millions of people is not a reputation the Winfrey brand can absorb without consequence. And the consequence has been exactly what the palace predicted it would be. Oprah's name has moved from the Sussex asset column to something much more complicated, and her distance from the couple has become one of the clearest indicators of how thoroughly their credibility has collapsed at the highest levels of American cultural influence. As the spring of 2026 deepens, the picture that has emerged from the convergence of all these threads is one that would have seemed almost unimaginable in the immediate aftermath of the 2021 Oprah interview, when the Sussex brand appeared to be at its apex and the monarchy appeared to be on the defensive. The reversal has been total, and it has been accomplished not through confrontation or public warfare, but through the specific strategy that the palace settled on and has executed with remarkable consistency to ignore. Replace, continue. Ignore the provocation, replace the departed, continue the work. Let the contrast, do the arguing, that public statements would only complicate. It is the most effective possible response to a couple whose primary power was derived from the institutional drama of their royal identity, because the thing they needed most from the monarchy was engagement, continued relevance, the ongoing story of the conflict. And what the palace gave them instead was institutional indifference so complete that there was no conflict left to sustain a narrative around. The silent boundary established by King Charles is now a permanent constitutional reality. The royal shield that Harry and Meghan spent years trying to dismantle and then tried to hide behind when their commercial empire began failing is definitively back in the possession of the institution that created it. And the era of correction, the period during which the monarchy reorganized itself around the post-Sussex reality, has produced a working royal structure that is, by most institutional measures, more coherent, more focused, and more genuinely committed to its core purpose than it was before the Sussex insurgency began. James Alexander is the future. William and Catherine are the foundation. The working royals are the structure, and Harry and Meghan are, in the final institutional reckoning of 2026, a footnote in the monarchy's ongoing story, a cautionary tale about the limits of celebrity culture when it attempts to replace the gravitational force of genuine institutional commitment with the temporary brightness of performative grievance. The bells of the palace ring for a new era, and the echo of Montecito is growing quieter with every passing week.